Hello and welcome to this conversation about supporting the new hybrid workforce. I'm Rich Freeman, executive editor of the ChannelPro network. And I want to start things out here with some recent statistics that I don't think will come as a huge surprise to anyone in our audience here. So first of all, just a couple of weeks ago, a company called JumpCloud did some research that showed 70% of US companies will be offering a work from home option indefinitely. And then just a week before that, another company called SunGard Availability Services found that 43% of people working from home in the US really don't want to go back to the office ever. And 51% would prefer a mix of remote and in-office work going forward. So I think all of that basically says what we all kind of knew or have known for a while here, which is that supporting the hybrid workforce is going to be a fact of life for channel pros for a long time to come. And what that means, of course, is you need to get as efficient and effective at that task as possible. So here to share some thoughts with us on that very timely topic is Eric Townsend. He is the America's SMB and MSP Marketing Director at Intel. Eric, thank you very much for joining us. Tell folks a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, Rich, thanks for having me here. Totally excited to have a conversation. So my day job is what we just talked about, right? Working with partners and actually having them figure, okay, how do I actually deal with all these external customers? Now, I've been doing it for a while, and I think a lot of partners have been supporting remote workers, right? They're not necessarily on site with them, but now it's just, the multiplicity factor of just thousands and thousands and thousands of endpoints. Now they're locations, not just endpoints. So so work with a lot of partners on a lot of the technology deployments, business activation activities, and raising kind of leadership acumen around how they're dealing with their teams and their customers. That's what I kind of do on a daily basis.
Fantastic. So you're going to have plenty of frontline details to share with us. So I shared some statistics to kick things off here. I mean, from your perspective, Eric, how big, how permanent a phenomenon is this hybrid workforce?
Yeah, I mean, Rich, I always take a step back and I say, kind of, what are expectations, right? What do business have expectations? And I think in the past, there wasn't really an expectation that you could work from home, right? They're like, I don't know if you can be productive. You got to be in the office. But I think now there's been an expectation that's been set by kind of everyone, right? That there is this work from home option or work from anywhere, I'll call it, right? So maybe it's not that you're going to be at home. You may be in a shared workspace, but you don't have to be in the corporate office. And so now, once again, it's not just an option, but I think it's now going to become an expectation of, okay, if I'm joining a company, right, or I'm moving to a new group within a company, what is their work from home policy? And it's now kind of an expectation that I'm going to have this flexibility. And that flexibility, I'm not going to say, Rich, I mean, from all the research that we're seeing at Intel for small, medium businesses out there across board, it's not like it's going to be, the entire work week. It's probably like that 2 to 3 days a week. And it's also dependent on the vertical, right? If you're in healthcare, probably not do too much work from home because if you're a nurse, things like that. But if you're like an IT, I'm sure in various groups where you can have remote capability to get to a customer, that 2 to 3 days a week is what's really bubbling up the top, not only from an employee saying, hey, this is what I really want to value, but also that understanding from executives that, yeah, I can have people there that 2 to 3 days remote, and that's not going to impact our collaboration to a level that doesn't make us successful.
So what kind of support challenges do people who are splitting time between the office and home pose for IT providers?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things, Rich. I think it's one around software. So the software they have, is it up to date? Is it secure? Their network they're on, is it secure? What are the different breach points it actually has? And then also, to be clear, their biggest one, Rich, is their behavior, right? Their behavior they actually have in the office and not in the office. Are they as vigilant around not clicking on certain things or going those things, in a remote environment versus in the office? In the office, we kind of get that mentality. In the office, I had that mindset. But if I'm not there, that behavior part can become a bigger and bigger issue.
And I mean, just in terms of, supporting those customers remotely, and sometimes they're in the office, sometimes they're at home, they're going to be on different networks and so on. What kind of remote support challenges do those workers pose?
There's a lot, Richard. I mean, there is another level of support. I call it like support 4.0 that we have to start thinking about, right? We always had our service desk, we had our help desk. I think we're going to have a hybrid desk that's basically have to start emerging, right? Because when I talk about software, there's patch updates that have to happen. There's a new software Rich coming out called Windows 11. This is a tiny one. Right? So you got to update. You're not just updating little tiny apps, right? This is talking full upgrade of operating systems, right? I think on the network side, this is one that a lot of partners have been, I've been talking to, said, hey, Eric, we're just getting hammered. And the reason why is because there's more attack points. If you think about, Rich, in a remote environment, think about your house, right, where you're at. You could technically have a breach point of your doorbell, right? Your doorbell's into the network, right? You could think about, some people have it on their fridge, to get internet on their fridge. Your TV, on average, people have about 10 to 12 attack points at their house. So it's not just like one point. So all this network security that has not been there, now let's start thinking about, okay, how do we make sure we're keeping people secure at the edge? And that's not just the endpoint, but it's the network. And I think also that behavior we talked about, right? How do you make sure that you're really putting in services in place that can enable people to have that behavior of, you know what, I'm using a company system, not my own, right? We don't want to use our own for business, but the company system for business. How do I make sure I'm using it the right way, keeping it secure, keeping it updated, and making sure that it is not going to impact, the company overall?
So with all of those challenges in mind, and obviously there are a lot of them, they're pretty steep, what does all of that imply about the tools and the techniques that people in our audience right now are going to need to use in order to take proper care of that hybrid workforce?
Yeah, and this is where, Rich, I'm going to just throw out a couple best practices, right? These are not Eric's, these are some of my bigger MSPs I work with. So first thing they're saying is they're being a lot more proactive. So the planning that, Rich, we would say before is like a best practice. Okay, if you're planning 1 week out on updates, that's pretty darn good. You're not doing the tier to the urgent, the daily, but you got to get beyond just that weekly. And you got to start looking monthly and quarterly. Now, some people are like, quarterly updates, what? I'm not saying you're going to know what that update is, right? But just start saying, okay, what is actually out there? Like, okay, we're going to make sure that all updates happen the first Monday of every quarter and the first Monday of every month, or however you want to get that. But you need much more proactive in planning out updates that actually happen from a monthly and quarterly perspective. And beyond that, Rich, the next level, that this has just been a game changer, I'll be honest with you. And it's going to sound super simple, but it's super hard. So when I say it, you'll be like, that's easy, but it's not. It's actually finding out new ways to communicate with your customers. And why I say this is because, when there's a breach, Rich, and everyone's in the office, everyone hears it, right? Hey, did you hear about that? Hey, don't click on that. They're in the office, right? But when everyone's spread out, you don't have that sneaker net, if you want to call it that, or people can hear things. So there's got to be a whole new way that you can communicate to your clients and your clients' employees. And it's not selling. So be clear, I'm not saying selling, but like I had a partner recently talk about having an all points bulletin that he sends out to his clients. So if there's a certain breach that's happening, or a certain bug, whatever he wants to make sure, everyone in the company knows when they get an APB, they know it's not sales from the partner, right? It's actually them. There's something specifically that you need to go and do, right? But I'm talking, all points bulletin, there's newsletters, but you have to find new ways to communicate to make sure that those updates, the issues that come up, that people know about that. And the one thing I will mention, Rich, that we don't talk a lot about, we love looking outward, not just inward, but there is a lot of chatter right now around keeping your shop secure. Everyone, right? Like, it's great that I'm doing my customers, but there are many MSPs I'm working with. They're very smart people, but the people we're up against they've got a lot of capability. And so there's a lot more partners getting breached nowadays. And it's not an easy thing, because if you get breached, then what ends up happening is that all of a sudden your customers get it. And we could talk about any of the big ISVs out there from our end perspective, right? And we all know the names of them out there. I'm going to say all of them, right? And there's some that haven't been breached, and those are coming soon. So I just be very clear on the environment we're in today. We have to make sure we keep our shop secure, because that can help others.
So any further best practices around securing that hybrid workforce, maybe in the area of awareness training, for example, or anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I would say, Rich, it's the mindset of, and a partner said recently, he takes an inside out approach. And I was like, well, what's that mean? And he says, well, an outside in would be I'm going to work with my customers and make sure they're all right. And then that'll make me inside all right. And I was like, okay, so And inside out means if you're doing well, then that'll make your customers more secure. He's like, exactly. He's like, our tools that we use, if our tools are not the right tools, like they get impacted, right? Whether they're pushing out bad updates and then our customers will be impacted. If our processes aren't set up the right way so that we can actually be very agile, right? That's the big word everyone uses around. If our processes are not agile, we cannot respond to different security issues that are out there. And lastly, this inside out approach also takes the fact of what is the impact that we can have to our customer, like mapping that out. So if something happens to us, how does it impact our customer? And really sitting down and say, okay, so if we have a breach on our side, what is the impact of the customer? And how do we, how do we close that gap so it's not like they're down for whatever period of time, but really just understanding, okay, if our data gets compromised, or if we have certain issues, this guy went down a level saying, what happens if our power goes out, right? He actually lived in a place where there's a lot of hurricane stuff. So if our power goes out, what's the impact of our customer? Now he's got some stuff off-site, so not that big. But I think that part around security and trying to understand how am I supporting this high workforce, I have to take more of an inside-out approach.
So, we're talking a lot about people, we're talking about processes, we're talking about software. Let's talk about hardware a little bit here. Given the support and security challenges that we've been talking about here, how should those factor into the hardware decisions that people make or the recommendations that they make to their customers?
And so, Rich, I was on a conversation this morning. It's like an hourly thing for me when I'm going with partners, talk to customers, and say, well, how does hardware play in this whole mix we're doing? The hybrid piece, the security piece, the collaboration piece, all these areas. And my first baseline, I tell everyone, first baseline is you got to require a business class solution. You can't. There's a lot of consumer ones out there. There's stuff out there that you really can't manage. You got to right front and say, hey, I got to make sure that like I've got a Dell Latitude with vPro. I got to make sure I've got a vPro class solution that I can. That is a business level solution, right? And you just got to start, because there's so much more that actually comes with it. Consumer ones are going to have all the cool games, Rich, on them. Like let's start up and it's called the games, but that's not really a business. It's not built for security. It's not built to have like all the business class collaboration tools. Can it be fast? Yeah, it can be fast. I'm not saying it can be fast, but I'm saying like for it to be able to handle all the things that go from a business perspective, it's not really there. I'd also say that when you think about, a system you're going to start, giving out to customers, you got to start thinking about, does it have hardware-based security just on a baseline, right? I didn't tell we called it Intel Hardware Shield, but does it have security built into the hardware? I'm not talking, back in the day, we'd be talking about antivirus software, Rich, and like, does it have antivirus, right? AV was our big, that's no longer, right? Then it's like backup was the big deal, right? Now it's like, does it have SIM? Does it have different security software on it? So you got to have a security stack that's involved there. And I think what you have to sit back and say, okay, do we actually have a business class system? Do we make sure it's got hardware-based security? And then the thing I'm really seeing pop well, Rich, and it's probably one of the hard things for partners to talk with their customers, is that you need to have a multi-layer security and managed service and right services approach. So it's like, oh, I'm just going to roll it all into managed services. I'm like, you don't do that. No. It's like when I'm going to anywhere, right? Like when I go to get my cell phone, right? I'm going to pay for all these additional services, like my data. I'm going to pay for all this stuff. I pay extra. Apple, everything is extra. So when we talk about that multi-layer, I call it services. So you're going to have your managed services, your security services, maybe your after-hour services, maybe your hybrid services, right? I was saying, but you need to start thinking about that. What is that layered approach for your services? Because like I said, business class is going to make sure that they have the right thing at the edge, right? That hardware-based security is going to be below, making sure it's stopping everything. And then the last part of those multi-level services, that's your business customers are expecting. Rich, there was a recent survey came out that said if it would to businesses, and specifically that's small, medium. So think of one person company up to about 999. And they asked them, he said, how many security services would you pay for? Like that you would actually pay for? There was the survey itself, I didn't see one. There was no one. It started at 3. So people pay for 3 services. I think it was over 36%. So they pay for 3. 4 they would pay for like, it was like 40%. It actually kept going up. They actually got to the point where they asked people, if there was 7 security services, we pay for all of them. And guess what? So over 50% of people said yes, because it's kind of like, Rich, right? When you get insurance policy, yeah, give me your base level one. That basically I can, yeah, if I mess up, I'll have to pay a lot more. People are like, tell me what I need. And that's where in this day and age we're in, especially in this hybrid force, people are saying, I've never done this before. We really didn't do this before. So what do we need to have from a services perspective? And that's where you lean in with all these different services with a business class system.
So you mentioned vPro before. Let's take advantage of the fact that we have somebody from Intel discussing this topic with us. Tell folks a little bit about technologies from Intel, like vPro, maybe like other technologies people in the audience here are less familiar with, that can help with some of these challenges, the demands of supporting and securing hybrid workers.
Yeah, and Rich, when people see Intel, they're sometimes you would think of us as just only this little processor company, right? Make little chips. We actually make platforms in Intel. So if you hear, see a lot of companies out there that are going into technology, and especially in our case of silicon, they're making processors, but they don't really make a platform. So platform from us means a processor, a chipset, a network connection, and firmware software. All four of those pieces make it so that you have a platform. So we have the vPro platform. That platform, gosh, is it really a big a deal? So if I want to go and just connect in like a ConnectWise tool, or a Datto tool, or a Spiceworks tool, or a Kaseya tool, or an Enable tool, right? That software piece on there, that's all the hooks that go into those tools. That business class system I was talking about, if you don't actually have a system that's actually integrated with your RMM, you got to go through all the pieces of getting the client, okay, doing your own testing. On our side, we're already testing those people every day, right? So think of the vPro platform, those four pieces: processor, chipset, network connection, firmware. So I got those four pieces. But think of the platform, but then there's these pillars, Rich, that we've really spent time on. So there's one pillar called active management technology. So vPro platform, active management technology. This is where if you really want to make sure that you can manage a system. So if let's say in those RMMs I told you about, I want to go through and do hardware base, let's say keyboard, video, mouse. So I can go through and I can actually go through and remotely get to a system, and I can be literally the mouse and the keys, and I can be anywhere, right? That's hardware based KVM. I'd say another big thing that's come up a lot nowadays, Rich, and we didn't go a lot into it, and I could spend another 2 hours on it, so maybe do another session on this, is ransomware. That's like an all, I haven't got an email yet today about this as far as from a partner, but usually it's at least, I wouldn't say one a day, but multiple a week, right? And Intel, so we've got our active management technology, AMT, but then we have something called TDT. It's our threat detection technology. Now, this is stuff that we're actually growing a lot on, and for some of you may have not heard of this before, but if you think of all of our kind of vPro technologies, our 11th gen and coming up on our 12th gen, and think of all the Dell Latitudes that will have this. It's already out today, but it's basically this advanced threat detection technology where when a ransomware actually hits a system, and it starts actually kind of has a little homing beacon to let the people know that this is actually in place. TDT is below the OS, like that hardware-based security. It starts actually monitoring that beep. And then all of a sudden, it'll actually send a message back to whatever your favorite EDR is. So if you do SentinelOne, CrowdStrike, and there's all these other pieces. So this part of how do we make sure it's managed the best? That's a vPro technology with AMT, links to all your RMMs. And then our TDT technology, working with the big EDR vendors out there to make it so that when there is a ransomware attack, you're actually proactively knowing, okay, it's actually in place. And there's a lot of other great things I would tell you out there, Rich, that we've got on Intel side we're doing with our silicon. And I'd encourage people to go to intel.com to see all that. But I'd say specifically for managed service providers, think of the active management technology, think of threat detection technology. That's in the vPro platform. And you can tell, Rich, every time you look at the sticker, and if it says vPro on it, it's there, right? Your Latitude 5,000, 7,000, 9,000, all your OptiPlexes, all the different systems that are out there from a business class perspective. Just look down, look for the sticker, and you'll usually see vPro there. A lot of partners using it out there today.
All right. Well, Intel's participation in our event today is sponsored by the Dell Expert Network. So we should actually spend a moment or two talking about how the Dell Expert Network can be helpful to people in the audience here in dealing with the problems of securing and supporting hybrid workers. Yeah.
And Rich, I always love sitting and just talking about, okay, what are additional resources that partners maybe not taking advantage of, right? Because it's always like, partners are trying to get the most out of all the tools they have. I sit and I talk, okay, what are we missing? What can we use more of? And this is when it's these hidden secrets that people are like, okay, I may have done Dell channel program. Maybe I haven't worked Dell. Dell Expert Network is specifically for MSPs. So that's one thing where I'm like, that's what I do all day, every day. So when I started talking to my friends at Dell and they said, we got this group over here, Dell Expert does stuff specific for MSPs, it does services, you should go talk to them. So I went and sat and talked to their team. Alicia, Wes, YJ, Lucas, all these great real people, right? That are literally has the heart to say, how do we are helping our MSPs out there? And I tactically, Rich, they got some awesome tools, Live Optics and Tech Direct. So if like a partner says, hey, I don't want to sit on the phone waiting for someone, I can actually look at all the tickets online. I'm going to tell you a big thing that I like the most about it, and a lot of partners rant and rave about it, they just love it because it makes their life easier, is having a dedicated account manager. So when you actually sign up and you're a part of Dell Expert Network, you actually have someone you interact with. It's not some call queue that you go into or some, @.com email address, right? You have a dedicated account manager. That's a big thing. And I'd say last thing, just being fully open, right? Partners always like, if I'm buying and doing stuff, what type of rewards do I have out there, right? And rewards are something that they actually have every quarter. They also have really cool interactions with a lot of the industry groups out there, like CompTIA, with different specialties and things. And I'll tell you, on the Intel side, Rich, too, you think of Dell Expert Network, we have our Intel Partner Alliance program, and it links directly. So those rewards that you get from Dell Expert Network in our Intel Partner Alliance, when you're buying those Dell systems, you're getting rebates back on those. So there's a lot of great things you can actually get access to. And I'd say it's one of these things where partners go, what else am I missing? What am I missing? And I would say, invariably, you should be checking this out. We've got, a lot of content available even on our DEN portal. So if you go into the Dell Expert Network portal, lots of great content for you to utilize, white papers, content marketing wise, that you can use out with your customers. So tools, people, rewards, and content, I'd say the ones that really are going to help partners be able to be successful coming up.
All right, very good. Well, lots of very specific, concrete suggestions there. Eric, thank you so much for joining us here and discussing this subject with us.
Thank you.
And thank you and our audience for joining in as well. I hope to see you again at a future ChannelPro recorded conversation.